Hello and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm your host, Steve Plumb, Editor-in-Chief for SME Media. Well, it's Thanksgiving week as we record this episode, and I'm very thankful to be joined by Kip Hanson and Amy Bryson as we discuss the December issue of Smart Shop Essentials. Amy and Kip, anything in particular that you're thankful for?
Well, thank you, Steve, for the lovely warm welcome, and I echo that sentiment. I'm thankful for you guys, and as we're looking to the year ahead, I'm looking forward to working with you both on many wonderful stories in 2026.
Yeah, same here. Looking forward to the holidays and getting into next year. Sounds great.
So the December issue focuses on automation, which I'm thankful for, that it can make the lives of workers easier and, taking away some of the repetitive, hard, and tedious work. And it certainly gives us plenty of good content to write about. And we had a lot of great sources this time around, including our friends at Hypertherm, who say, for people that haven't automated yet, there's no time like the present to get started. It can really help out in efficiency and productivity in a number of ways. Even companies like Hypertherm, who are, of course, known for, their plasma and water jet technology. But the company also is a leader in offline programming software, which is becoming even more important for robotics, which are, even more complex than some of the traditional machines. Hypertherm describes offline programming software as kind of like computer-aided manufacturing for CNC machine tools. Only in this case, it's for robotics and cutting applications. And as I said, it's much more complicated, complex. There's more degrees of freedom, and therefore more complexity in performing different applications out there. And as Hypertherm points out, robots can basically be used for anything. Whether it's welding, cutting, spraying, grinding, machining, deburring, or moving parts around and materials around, which is one of the things that they use it for. And, as I said, there are just so many benefits for automation, not only in the things you think about, but also it can be in the soft skills for, helping to upskill some of the workforce out there. And it also helps drive people into the industry, seeing all these new technologies. And really, they stress, if you're not already doing it, get into it now. But at the same time, robotics and automation don't necessarily, they go hand in hand, but one doesn't necessarily mean the other. A case in point is Brad Hasty from L&S article, which was aptly entitled "Belly Up to the Bar," a clever way to address modern bar feeders. But in some cases, bar feeders can be a better, automation investment than a robot, especially for small diameter applications where you can advance the stock in, less than 10 seconds, which is faster than it takes a robot to do the same task. At the same time, as robots become more and more popular, shops tend to look first for that and may overlook the simpler solution like a bar feeder, thinking that it's going to be more time consuming to set up. But as Brad notes, changeover is usually 10 minutes or less, and can be even quicker for short, so-called shorty loads. The other issue out there is programming costs, and which basically is about the same for a good bar feeder and robotics. And when you add in some of the customization of a robot, it can be even less expensive. And typically, it's the ROI is a little as 3 months for a bar feeder. So, while as great as robotics can be, there can be other solutions out there. And I know, Yep, you've tackled this issue in the past.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for that, Steve. Yeah, and just to follow up on the bar feeder, I think that a lot of shops are probably still, working with their 20-year-old bar feeder, not realizing that there have been a lot of advancements over recent years, especially towards magazine-fed bar feeders, which allow you to load up, 10, 12, 20 bars stock and just let the machine run all night. So it's a huge benefit when you can do that. And in that same vein, one thing that it's always kind of bothered me or had me wondering is why more shops don't put pallet changers on their machines. I know you can buy a brand new machining center, and some builders will allow you to put on a pallet changer from the factory, but I think they're kind of falling away, and I don't quite know why. So to answer that question, I reached out to Mideco. They're kind of the last man standing on aftermarket pallet changers, and I started by asking Mike Muneo. I think I've got his name pronounced correctly. He's one of the VPs over at Mideco, and I asked him. I said, "Why? Years past, you had SMW and a couple others that offered a similar product, and they've gone away. He's kind of the last company that's building these machines, and he couldn't really answer why that was the case either, because they're doing quite well. Business is going in the right direction, and they're coming out with more and more options on pallet changers. And I mean, boy, if I were a shop owner, uh, every one of my verticals would have a pallet changer on them, because I mean, you're talking about bringing OEE from maybe 40%, which is probably the industry average for high mix, low volume job shops. Easily gain 20 points in OEE by with a maybe a $40,000 investment, about the same as a robot.
Why do you think companies don't use it more often?
I don't know. And I'll give you the same answer on a lot of things that I promote and that we talk about in the magazine. As far as quick change tooling and 0 point fixturing and offline presetting. I could go on and on. I don't understand why these aren't the norm these days. But yeah, it's a head scratcher, because again, for 30, 40 grand, you can keep the door shut and just keep making parts all day long without the typical opening the door, loosening the vices, taking the parts out, blowing the vice out. It's probably a minute per part change at least, and boy, it sure adds up. But I mean, the automation. I really look forward to doing this edition, the year-end edition, like you said, focused on automation. The bar feeders and the pallet changers are just part of that. Robots are growing in popularity, obviously, and to that point, we did speak to a couple, shout out to a couple industry experts. One of them was Will Healy at Universal Robotics, and I asked him for one piece of advice that he would give to shops that are thinking about robotics, and it's kind of surprising. He said, "Don't go alone. Find a good partner and ask for their advice, and stick with them for the long haul, because they can help you out with." It's a brand new technology for a lot of shops, putting in a robot, and obviously there's a lot more to it than just the implementation. You've got the end effectors, you've got part presentation. There's just a lot to work through. And if you're a newbie to it, you really do well to ask for some help.
Yeah, I ran into Will a couple times this fall at our manufacturing technology series events, and he's definitely not shy about speaking his mind, and is a fountain of information, and is really a great source for all things automation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I've been speaking with him for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years now, and yeah, he's a smart guy. And another smart guy over at Fanuc, Christian Stevenson, he wrote it's kind of a guidebook, I guess, with some bullet points on, what shop should know before the salesperson arrives. Simple things like, what are you trying to achieve? Why are you doing it? Is your workspace robot friendly, and so on. We presented kind of a Reader's Digest version of a longer piece that you can download from their website. A lot of good practical tips. And the other thing, we're always looking for shops that are doing it right. Taking advantage of the latest technology and so on. So I don't remember who it was that turned me on to this shop out in Wisconsin, Mitotech. It's a typical small job shop, 60 people or so. They've been in business for, I think it was almost 70 years. They started out as a screw machine shop. And sometime around 2000, 2004, I think it was, they finally decided or realized that mechanical screw machines were becoming a thing of the past, and they better upgrade or they're going to go out of business. So they started out by buying a couple Tornos multi-Swiss machines, kind of leveraging their existing multi-spindle approach, only with live tools and a lot more automation to them, programmability and so on. And from there they've gone into Eurotech lathes and Swiss style lathes from Sagami and so on. And their latest one is really kind of the focus of the article. Is they had a customer that they were talking like having to hire another 40 people, I think it was, just to keep up with demand, add on to the building and all that. And they ended up buying a couple index rotary transfer machines that are managed by a pair of Fanuc robots. And they've really just done a really good job. I mean, they're working on lights out. They're getting at least 3-4 hours extra a night of unattended machining. With that, they've done some of the things I just mentioned a minute ago. Remote monitoring, broken tool detection, offline presetting, all of that stuff. And I think they're really, in my mind, they're kind of a shining example of where shops need to be going to compete in this brave new world.
Yeah, I think too often shops, when business is going good, they get caught up in just getting the orders out without thinking about the future and how to improve their business and how to become more efficient and take on more work.
No, it's a great point, because, and I think not only are people busy getting parts out the door, but oftentimes there's not a champion, and whether that champion for change is the president or the owner's kid or someone out on the shop floor that is somewhat of techie. Someone's got to lead the charge and bring the rest of the team along with them on as they move forward.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, just in general, about this kind of move toward automation. Is really the biggest changes are cultural, or there has to be internal buy-in. That's how I kind of term culture. And Kip, I think that's spot on in terms of who are the flag carriers and who can really prove to people or show people, not just talk to people about it, but how these things are, whether they're small or large changes, they're great changes for everybody. And I think that that's a really important piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes back. I learned that the hard way when I did ERP consulting for, about 10, 12 years. And change management is key. You got to have a champion, and you got to get people used to change. People don't like to change, and it's critical as we move forward and adopt new technologies.
For sure.
Cool. Amy, did you have a story on? I think we had it was called DIY droids.
Yes. Well, I think I shared with you gentlemen, maybe during our last podcast, that as a kid, one of the gifts I got for Christmas, and I was probably 6 or 7, was an erector set. And I felt so cool, but I couldn't figure out how to help to do this thing. No one would help me, but I wanted to build something cool. And it reminded me a lot of when I read the story DIY Droid, which is essentially talking about how many shops feel like they can just get some of these crate robots that show up at the front door and kind of integrate it by themselves. And certainly a lot of shop floors are filled with these so-called MacGyvers who I always wanted to become MacGyver myself. And they may have a ton of mechanical skills and the ability needed to hook up a robotic arm, for example. But it's really about, do you have the time and the money? And also, can you manage the risk associated with doing this on your own? And while some larger companies do their own integration, those shops are typically the ones, or those companies have significant automation experience and even trained entire engineering teams on staff. So, the company Aceta, which is an automation and robotics integrator, they provide some really sound advice for anyone thinking about buying a new robot and, these crate robots and kind of going it on their own. And they ask a lot of questions if a business is thinking about doing this. And those questions focus on a variety of things, such as, what is the type of work area that's available for the robot? Are you going to need barriers or even fencing? And what communication capabilities exist so that the robots can, talk to the CNC and auxiliary equipment. And a big piece of the puzzle is training. And it includes training for the companies to set it up and training for the operators, which they say is often overlooked, as well as what I mentioned earlier, which is this risk assessment piece of things. And many shops simply are unaware of the specific documented safety requirements that are needed before operation can happen. And as part of this piece, which also includes some really cool graphics about this tiny scared droid coming out of a crate, shows up at your, doorstop. So again, the print and digital issues are chock full of really great graphics that support the issue. So make sure you check that out on advancedmanufacturing.org. But as part of this story, there's a sidebar that lays out the pros and cons of sort of DIYing your robotics installation. So check that out and get smart before you think about going it alone, or as we say, DIY if you dare. And it's just a really smart, concise article filled with really good guidance.
Hey, Amy, do you still have an erector set?
No, but you know what? I've been thinking about getting one, and while I'm not 6, I I really have thought about that, periodically over the years, and it really could have changed. I think about this. It could have changed the direction of my life because I was so geeked about it and felt like such a failure and just like quietly suffered through it. It was really sad, and I wish that I would have, looped in more people to help me, but it was a very isolating experience. But I wonder what could have been. I often wonder what could have been.
I'm not giving up on you yet.
Thank you.
I think you can still MacGyver your way into a new career.
What are you trying to tell me, Steve?
Well, when you said DIY if you dare, I thought that was more of a Halloween oriented story than Thanksgiving, but it is an interesting concept, and I agree with the premise that don't go it alone.
Yeah, exactly. Even the 6-year-old version of me would advise that as well.
And speaking of change management, that's something that we embrace here as well. And 2 years ago, we went down the road with Smart Shop Essentials and launched that, and it has been a success. And Kip, you've done a extraordinary job, and the stories that we've told, and helping out these small and mid-sized companies get up to speed on what's next on Industry 4.0 and automation and all these wonderful, extraordinary technologies. And even though the current print edition of SSE is ending with the December issue, we're going to continue on with Shop Essentials into the future. So definitely keep an eye out for it in Manufacturing, Engineering, and Technology magazine in upcoming issues. And we look forward to the next stories that you're working on, Kip.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, it's been fun working with you guys on this, and I hope we keep the three amigos together on this project.
Definitely, and also a shout out to our fourth amigo, Niger Design, who did another great job with the December issue. And to learn more about the latest manufacturing trends and to hear more of our podcasts, visit advancedmanufacturing.org and be sure to like and subscribe to our feed.